It's an honor to be invited to speak to such an august audience. I'm going to obviously speak about the psychology of digital crime. Before that, I would like to just briefly talk about, as an organization, what is that we do. As an organization, we try to understand and influence human behavior across a spectrum of problems, both in society and in the corporate world, across the world. To be honest, we work now more outside India than in India. But what makes us different, because human behavior is something which I know all of you, and not all of you, I know a lot of you are from the law enforcement agencies, or you could be even as journalists or any of them, we all supposed to be knowing about it. But I think the last 10 to 12 years, there has been a fundamental change in the science of human behavior. And that sort of really came in about a few months back when the Nobel Prize in Economics came to Richard Thaler, who sort of fundamentally changed the very constructs of human behavior. But I think much before, I think Nobel Prizes made behavioral economics famous. I think we as a firm 11 years back have been using the learnings of behavioral economics. But for us, the learnings are from cognitive neuroscience, the science which says if I really want to understand human behavior, I just need to go to the place where all our thoughts and all our actions begin, which is our brain. And we are the first organization in the world to actually take learnings from cognitive neuroscience, behavioral economics, and combine it with design to actually understand and then deliver solutions which we didn't think it was possible to actually come up with and solve these problems. A few years back, when I was taking a session for all the general managers of Indian Railway at the Staff College in Baroda, after my talk was over, one gentleman walked up to me and said, "Biju, very interesting talk, but can you help me?" So I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "I'm the general manager of Central Railway." I said, "Oh, I'm in Mumbai most of the time." So he said, "Can we meet?" So I went and met him. And in his huge palatial office sitting there, he said, "You know, there is a report that I get every week. And Biju, that just spoils not my day, my whole week." I said, what is it all about?" He said, "It's the number of people who die while they get hit by the train." And he said, 10 to 12. I said, "Per month?" He said, "No." He said, "Per week?" I said, "No. Per day." He said 10 to 12 people in Bombay die as they cross the railway tracks. And that is the single largest cause of death, of unnatural death in Mumbai city. He says, "Can you guys do something about your science, and can you guys do something about it?" I said, "Yeah, I will." It took my team 6 months to actually study that particular problem. The problem is simple. You go to any of those locations where accidents happen, and you can see the train is coming. There's no visibility of a problem. Later on, when the railway asked us to study the problem about unmanned level crossings, we straight away realized one thing. Wherever the visibility of the train is poor, accidents won't happen. Wherever the visibility of the train is, I can see a train coming in from almost 2 kilometers away, that's exactly where the accidents will happen. And now we work on road accidents. Now we know for all the curvy roads which are seen as dangerous, for every one accident that happens there, 4 to 5 times more accidents happen on the straight roads across there. So this wasn't a surprise when I said, "Yeah, I can see the train coming in." So obviously we said, why is he getting hit by a train? Because everyone knows that that train that is coming in is a train. And I'm not Rajinikanth's younger brother that if a train hits me, the train will fall off and I will survive. I'm not that. But why is he getting hit by it? And that's when our understanding of neuroscience came in. And I think we realized that these people, and there are thousands who cross the railway tracks every day, are dying because our brain has a deficiency. Because evolutionarily, our brain has been created to judge the speed of small objects brilliantly. So we saw the deer and the rabbit running, and our forefathers threw the spear and we killed it instantly and had our breakfast on that day. But the elephants and giraffes never moved fast. And things started moving fast in the last 150 years. And 150 years is too short a time for our brain to adjust itself. And we realized, and Professor Lebovich had done this work long back, and when I heard you talking about taking learning from academia, and he said, we underestimate the speed of a large object by close to 40%. Our brain does a brilliant job of crossing a jaywalking, which means if I look at it even in a physics examination, it's a very complicated one. To judge, should I run, should I not run? It is, I have to take into consideration what is the distance between me and that particular car. At what speed the car is coming towards me. What is the distance between me and that particular road? And so, will I be able to have enough time? This time T1 is less than whatever. So, should I run, should I not run? Now, in a physics examination, which we do in 10 to 12, if I give all these variables, it will take us 3-4 minutes to calculate is that T1 less than T1 or T2. But our brain is so brilliant, it looks at it, take it, tick, rock, happens in a millisecond. But that exact powerful ability of the brain goes for a complete toss when it comes to judging the speed of a large object. As I'm walking towards it, I can see a train coming in as I walk, and the train is much closer than what it is. And we know when the heartbeat goes up above 175, we freeze. A lot of motormen told us, sir, sub-suicide, sir, because I was honking and he didn't move. But we didn't want to change his perception, because we know he got in there, and when things are far too high, you will die. So we got that insight. We got the insight that trains are faster than what do you think. So how do you now get the people to save themselves? Now there is a traditional way of our perception of human behavior. And that traditional, our understanding of human behavior is man is a rational man. He is very conscious. So all that we need to tell him is tell him that, this is dangerous. Don't do it. You're driving, this is 80 kilometers is the speed here. Or don't smoke. As long as we believe, and so all the problems in the world, we have only one solution is awareness building. Why rapes are happening? Aware. Make them aware. Now, which man in the world needs to be told that this is a woman? You dare not even, I know in a normal interaction, there is a gap that I keep between a woman or any person when I interact with. Who needs to be told that I shouldn't rape? So many times when people speak about awareness, there's one incident which very few, even newspaper people have not reported. On 22nd of May 2010, after an Air India Express was landing in Mangalore. We know it's a tabletop airport. And so DGCI insists that the captain has to take over. And Captain Glusiga, who's got more than 10,000 hours of flying time, took control over that particular plane. And he said, as he was about to, and he has landed in Mangalore 17 times before. And he's a man who trains trainee pilots what to do and what not to do. As he was about to land there, 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and I have the whole recording of this on there. The machine is telling him, we are far too high, sir. We need to do a go round. Not just the machine. 5, 6, 7, 3 more times. His co-pilot is telling him, sir, we are far too high. Few minutes before he was to land, Captain Glusiga had 7 warnings not to land his plane. But why did Captain Glusiga land? In a world where we think awareness will solve the problems. Now, we work across a spectrum of problems across, and I want to tell you, no, it won't. So we knew when the railway problem happened that this traditional conscious communication, and which is there in our rearview mirror of our automotive, objects in the mirror are closer than what they appear. Has it ever, your brain managed to tell you that that motorcycle that you see there is closer than what it is? That's conscious communication. And we know from neuroscience today, consciousness is less than 1% of our processing. More than 99% of our processing happens at a non-conscious level. So we knew that if I have to make people behave, I have to get into their non-conscious. So a traditional method based on it would have been to put up boards across Bombay from Kalyan to Churchgate, 56 kilometers, boards which says, trains are faster than what you think, so be careful. It would have been useless. But my team went deeper to study as to how does the brain judge speed. And we knew brain always judges speed. Across culture, across this, there's only one way the brain judges speed, with respect to a reference point. If there's no reference point, as it happens when we came in on a flight today, we couldn't judge the speed. So all that we said is, now how do we give a reference point to these people who are crossing? And my team came up with this idea. Initially we thought on the side or whatever, because railway is trying to move things apart because people are hanging out and getting hit. Finally my team came up with this. Now the place where people cross it's a constant place across Bombay. Now the direction of the train is also constant. To the left of where he is, that means he's crossing from here. To his left, 5 sleepers are painted in yellow, 15 are left empty, another 5 are painted. You have blobs of about 4 to 5, and after that obviously the parallel lines would merge. There's no point in doing it, but that's good enough. And when the train comes from there, the speed at which the yellow lines disappear under the train becomes a reference for this particular person. Now today, it's a case study in Philip Kotler's latest book. And I show the numbers that this managed to bring about. And what is the cost of implementing this? We took a Vadala because that 1 kilometer stretch was the largest increase in accidents were happening. Because we believe in always testing our solutions live there. So 17 deaths in 6 months had gone up to 23 deaths. I mean 40 deaths were happening in that 800 kilometer stretch. The first 6 months of our solution, the death rate came down to 9. So a lot of people ask, won't people get used to this? I said, those days I wasn't too sure. I said, put it up for 6 more months. The next 6 months, the accident came to 1. And year on year, I don't speak about completely eradicating problems, so year on year only, 75% reduction in death. And that's when one of the large infrastructure companies called ILFS came to us and said, we build a lot of roads other than NHAI. ILFS is one of the biggest builders of roads in India. They said, can you guys do something about reducing road accidents in this country? Use this whole approach of non-conscious design and use of understanding of neuroscience, and can you guys do something about it? So we said yes. So we took the black spots. So for example, assume the black spot is the extreme end out there. So we knew from this one that when our studies say, people judge the speed whether my leg should be on my accelerator or on my brake, or what speed should I run, not by people not looking at the speedometer. People actually judge what there should be by the way things are going past them. Now, which is a reference point. And so what did we do? You can see these white lines there. But as the white lines appear closer to that black spot, obviously the gap between the white lines have been reduced. This is Hyderabad-Bangalore highway. Some of you might have seen it. I'm sure, and you would have went across it. But what you didn't realize is that because suddenly our distance is closer, white lines are going, suddenly the white lines are going faster than what it is, automatically your leg will move from the accelerator to the brake. And with speed gun studies showed people were reducing accidents, when the speeds were reduced by 20 to 50% in a matter of 250 to 300 meters. Or in the curves where people need to do just certain lines coming against me is more than enough. And because driving is one of the most non-conscious activity you do. And at that point of time, write poetries on our highways by saying, what is this and that and all that. There's no time people to read all that and decipher and make a change. Things have to work in milliseconds at an unconscious level. And that's exactly what we did. And this is the numbers. We saw the fatal accidents coming down by 56% over 1 year, and total accidents coming down by 43%. So many times I tell people, we know that road accidents in India reduces the whole thing by, affects our GDP by about close to 3%. Now this project of final mile alone, I think I can walk to the finance minister and say, sir, we are adding 1.4% to the GDP of this country. And I think just last week is where the Maharashtra government, the transport secretary heard of us. He has asked us now to work on the Bombay-Pune highway. It is the single largest cause of death causing accidents across there. Early days, and we are now working ILFS, we've done it about 15 highways across the country. And for example, when, the longest road tunnel, that was an ILFS tunnel across there, some of you would have noticed it. We were asked to obviously run, you would have seen signages around, but there's something else we did there. Initially, all the communication around that was India's longest road tunnel. Now we told the management and this particular people, really want to secure, and we know what all happens around there. Don't talk about it. Talk about the time it saves the local people from crossing from one side to the other. And you change the language that you speak. And that actually will make that tunnel more secure than putting in a whole lot of security apparatus there. Because you know what the people, who are supposed to be not there. And I think when it means for the local people, now they won't touch that particular place. And there was a change in communication. So we work on a lot of things around there to actually change people's behavior, including that of terrorists. So when I come to the digital space, this is just to give you a feel of what we do, and I can continue. And by the way, I know I heard about girl trafficking. We have done the project that we did on girl trafficking. We studied both, which is the supply side. Why do girls get pushed, and what are the factors that sort of pushes girls into it? So we went to 24 Parganas and Warangal, which are there, and that's the supply side. And on the demand side, we studied why do men go for paid sex. So we studied both. And that was chosen in 2016, both SOMAR Tokyo and SOMAR New Orleans as the best case study in the world. So it's an SOMAR case study, so you can easily download and read. And you will see how we've looked at and as to what causes that problem which Mr. Gazariga was talking about in the morning. That's a very sad problem. But I think there is a different way of looking as to what causes even that particular problem there. But coming back to digital space, and that's what I've been asked to speak on. Then let me talk about any public space. What do you think is a public place in India where we Indians don't spit, don't throw any papers around? I don't have data, but my assumption is that the ladies will not be molested also much in those particular places. And it's not Singapore. Many times we say we are in Singapore, we behave that way. We behave very well in Switzerland, but in India no. Which is that public place? I think, yeah, I think that's why I have a column in Mint newspaper. Every fortnight I write a column. And I wrote this. Because I wrote this column because, the Calcutta Metro general manager called me about a year and a half back and said, there are a lot of suicides happening in Calcutta Metro. Can you study that? So I went back to Calcutta again after almost 20 years. I was there in 1990. I began my career over there. And I went back again. So I used to travel the Calcutta Metro at that point of time. So I went into Park Street and all that to where to study suicides. But one of the things I looked at and said, there's no sheet of paper anywhere. No one is speaking anywhere across there. And it's almost, almost hard enough. 28 years has gone past and things are there. Why? And then suddenly I realized, yeah, because we do work here for the metro in Goregaon. The Delhi metro is the same. The Cochin metro is the same, where people don't do anything. Why? Why are in... Now, to me, I think we need... That's exactly what I want. I think we need... And my article gets into a bit more in detail. Many times there are a lot of good things happening around there. But just that we don't have a science to understand that. And because we don't have a science to understand that, we don't actually now not taking it to more places. The replicability happens. Remember, when the reverse swing happened, I'm sure it's one of those Pakistani bowlers where one of those tired days, and after half a day, Imran would say, get up man and do it or whatever. He took the old ball and did, reverse swung. He said, okay. And I'm sure the initial sufferers, Imran or whoever they are, they didn't know what is actually making it there. But intuitively they knew, that's an old ball, if I do it, it happens. But by the time the academicians took that, studied the physics of it, and then deciphered it, now even a university player level person can actually reverse swing. And so we need a science. We need a science to explain it, and only then replicability happens. So if it can happen, whoever, literate, non-literate, whoever is there in Delhi Metro, I'm sure he's got his pan or whatever, or he's got his paper there, but somewhere he's not throwing it there. But he's kept it in there. Then why can't we not now replicate it across the country? It is possible. But that's a good point of one of those incidences where I think we have a positive deviance, as we call it. where I think, otherwise we are negative, we have spit and things around there, but I think due to what we call a context, I think, because the core factor is in this is the context in which we are determines our behavior. And even a change in that context can actually make a big change across there. And today, when I'm speaking about the digital world, today I'm only going to just given my time that I have, just only get into the context of it. And what are some of the contextual factors of the digital world can actually, in my mind, make even good people like us do bad things. So you saw the Delhi metros are allowing bad guys like us not to do it. But as far as the digital world is concerned, as I go in, I talk about 4 factors, which is going to make people like us, you and me, very law-abiding people. We are all very nice people. And that's exactly what Philip Zimbardo, who is the very famous psychologist who did the very famous Stanford prison experiment, wrote in that particular book called Lucifer Effect, which said in all of us there is a Lucifer. Depends upon the context in which we are, that will come out. And so when we study the digital, I assume the law enforcement people, the hardcore criminal, he, whether digital or some way, I know you guys will find a way to do that. And I'm sure I'm not getting into that. But I'm going to talk about why you and me, our children, they're all law-abiding good kids across there. But because of the context of the digital world, I think things can go astray. And that's why we should be careful about. So what are the core contextual characteristics of the digital world which I'm really going to be concerned about? And the first is anonymity. I think we used to say that, until there used to be that statement that character is what you are in the dark. But until this generation, we were never in the dark. I grew up in a small little village in Kerala. And even I used to go to college about 20 kilometers away. And I used to sit there in the India coffee house and smoke away. And I thought my mother is not going to see it. Those are not the days of definitely not the mobile phones. My house didn't even have a phone. But 3 or 4 hours later, I reach home. My mother is waiting there with Talapuli. Vada, come. Because the news that her wonderful son was sitting in India coffee house and smoking away has reached madam. Because I realized we all, the older generation, grew up in an environment where even when we went 20, 25 kilometers away, we were under the protection of what I call an extended family. But this is the generation, my daughter's generation, when he steps out on Andheri station, goes to St. Xavier's College, and I told her, you go to a world where nobody knows you, and you don't know anyone, and you can do whatever you want. And we have no clue how to allow those kids to deal with that and how to deal with it. Because in that particular world, they have no real awareness. They know no one knows them. And they don't know anyone about it. And anonymity, what does it do to you? I think clearly studies are showing when you're in an anonymity situations across there, we tend to move away from the responsibilities of our action. These are all inherent fundamental human behaviors. And I think the regulations and other things which works very well in other places tends to go for a toss, and we tend to sort of dismiss those across there. I know some of you are from the army background. I know painting the faces and all are an integral part of this. But what is the impact of that? Why do they paint their faces almost to that I can't even distinguish that particular person? What is the science behind it? There's a science. I think cultural anthropologists have studied about 23 societies that went to war. And 15 of them they found had huge pains all around them. And what they found is, and 8 did not have. And what they found is, these 15 were the most brutal. And 12 of them were like brutal at the core when they came to the enemies, dealing with the enemies. The anonymity allows me and promotes destructive behavior. The anonymity of the digital world, and we have inherently used it. So we made our soldiers almost anonymous by not even their individuality, and many times we cover them up. We might say that helmet is for their protection. Of course it will be. But what it does a lot is that also makes them anonymous. And that the anonymity makes them take on far more brutal behavior in them than if they were actually, they said, okay, the people are seeing what I'm really doing it. Now this is a significant factor we should keep in mind. The second characteristics is, I think clearly, and we, for example, we were asked to study one of the large insurance companies in India, the private sector companies, and there were a lot of employees, the 15,000 also employees, and a lot of mis-selling and a lot of lack integrities when they came to the consumers. And we were asked to study and said, how do you bring down those integrity problems in their mis-sellings and others? And one of the things that we found is, as the distance between me and the victim goes, increases, I think my tendency not to be bothered about him actually is very, very large. And what happens because all this comes because there's something called a facet called empathy. And empathy is something which is that I relate to each other. And we relate to each other when it's a face-to-face transaction. And we know, those people who have read the First World War stories know that. The First World War, face-to-face killing was almost zero. Nobody was willing to shoot the other guy on the opposite trench. And this is a very famous photograph of a German soldier who's actually now lighting a cigarette for an English injured soldier. And I know you in the army and in the police force changed the whole training program to get this fundamental nature of human being out. Earlier you had the round and you asked them to shoot in between, but you actually then moved into actual human beings. And not only that, you actually said, I don't want to use those, you dehumanize that particular person. And today we know that, look at all the riots that happen, all the massacres that happen around there. And if you look at the construction or the communication that happens out there, the people who initiate mass killings always says they are cockroaches, stamp on them, crush them. Because if it is a human being, even if it's an enemy who's about to, the fundamental nature is, I won't be able to shoot you. And by the time the Vietnam War came in, yes, the shooting rate was about 90% and more. Vietnam and Iraq War, it went up from nowhere to 90% because we changed it. But that's for army purpose, I'm not getting it. But the point I want to bring in is, the internet dehumanizes because of the distance. Earlier I would find very difficult to look at a lady and say whatever bad words, I shouldn't. But today, I don't care, man. I don't know. They don't know me. I don't know her. Say, And the cyberbullying and all other things are really there. And I speak whatever I want to speak, the most atrocious things I want to do, because there's no empathy. The physical distance between me and my victim is creating a lack of empathy. And that is creating a dehumanizing thing. So as much as a Rwanda or look anything where there were massacres because of a dehumanizing part, and what I think the internet is waiting and is happening today is that dehumanizing facet of our nature is coming in, and that is playing a very significant role in a lot of problems that are happening on the internet today. Another very important thing that many times in psychology and others, we tend to think that every individual has only one personality. But today the latest understanding of human behavior would always say we all have multiple personality, multiple identities. But which identity comes out there depends a lot on the context. The context determines what identity I should take. Now, what the internet is allowing me to do is, I can flip over and move from whatever. There are that dream identity I wanted to be. I wanted to be, I don't know, maybe a 16-year-old boy who he wants to sort of lure some girls or whatever. I can take it up on the internet. That I'm a 50-year-old guy doesn't matter. But it allows me to do that in the internet world. And that's exactly what is really happening out there. So that flipping of identity is now very, very easy because of the whole anonymity that is setting up in the internet world. The third characteristics is, there is obviously in the real world there is a there's a tangibility about it. But the moment it comes into the digital world, there's a fair bit of abstractness about it. I'll make it clear. Now, if you ask me, that's a little kid, Biju, don't even touch her. I know it. I know it. And I shouldn't be doing it because that's tangible. That's a kid in front of me. I can look at that kid. I can see the kid across there. But when you tell me, no, Biju, you're not supposed to watch child pornography. No, that is, but that's a photograph. Or, we know that we will not steal a book. We won't walk into whichever is the bookstore out there and actually steal a book. But when it comes to downloading that book illegally, tink, it happens. We don't see it at all. Now, I'm sure none of us have stolen a book in our life, I'm sure. But can we all say that we didn't download any music or we didn't download an article or download a listens about it? Is the intangibility of there takes away to a large extent the feeling that is out there. And today I know child pornography is a huge problem. As much as girl trafficking, we know one of the subsets of that is being used there. But I think those of you who are working in that particular area has to be aware that it is not an easy job to make sure that happens, because the behavioral implication is far easier to rationalize my behavior when it's intangible. Oh, that's a movie, now. What am I doing? Oh, it's okay. I'm not hurting her, now. It's okay. I'm seeing it. I just rationalize it so easily. Oh, that's a book. Now it's okay. And you will find very intelligent rationalizations for a completely wrong actor. And same in a tangible world, we won't be able to do that. And the fourth characteristics I want to talk about is, earlier when I had to do something, if I had to hit you, if I had to steal something, I have to enter into your space. And that itself, I knew I was doing something wrong. I always had to do it. But today, I can raid a bank, I can do whatever, sitting across geographies. I can sit in my private place across. And the lack of not moving away from there allows me to, again, what I call justify it, but more than justify, what we are seeing in a lot of these white-collar workers, people say, no, it's illegal. But it's okay, now everyone does it. The immorality of it, that there's two things. I know from a legal point of view, all of you would say, as long as legal is there. But I'm a behavior change expert. Laws are not going to change human behavior. What people are going to change is when they believe is not because that is illegal, but that's immoral. Because morality is, because you and I have a public face. We all are part of a society. And morality is actually what drives our actions every day. So unless we manage to bring in morality, a lack of morality into that particular act, and not just law alone, we're not going to do it. But the point I want to bring in is, as the internet is concerned, that's not going to be an easy job. It is a bit of a tougher proposition to achieve. Because obviously morality is based on social norms. There are norms that happen around. Because we work for one of the large, one of the largest companies, in India. And the company has a brilliant policy as far as traffic is concerned, because first of all, employees are not allowed to bring their private vehicles. So there is a travel agency who's there, the cars are used across the country. They have a policy saying that after 7 o'clock, even that you can't, because wherever you are, you have to get down from that car, get into a public transport and go. Or even at the back seat, even if you are the CEO of the company, if you don't put the seat belt in the back seat, the travel agent driver has been told not to start the car. So it's a brilliant company from a safety point of view. That company's, one of the employees there, and I don't want to mention where it is, the evening when he takes his wife and kids out there, no seat belt, nothing, met with an accident, all of them died. That's when the CEO called us and said, hey, can you guys do something about it? I've done everything. I've taught them defensive driving, I gave them this. But I thought when it comes to their personal lives, their wives and their kids, at least they will actually, transform something they do 8 hours a day onto them. They're not doing it. And when we stepped in there, we realized, yes, 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, or 6 o'clock, I'm in that office. The norms of that office I'll follow. And the norms of that particular office is, okay, strict traffic rules. Once I stepped out from after 6 o'clock, I'm in my world. Hey, people will laugh at me now if I put my or when they went for holidays, that the head of safety of that organization, because our whole research methodology is not asking people. I'll maybe pause to talk about. We don't, because in our understanding non-conscious, we don't ask people why you did what you did. So we have developed a very unique research methodology where at ethnographic or a level, without asking people, we have ways to figure out what it is. So they didn't know that we are there on that to actually do this. And the head of traffic, when he's in Bhopal, he realized he's not even there, because he said, who's wearing, I look like a very sissy guy if I wear one seatbelt and do it. Because the norm of that particular place was that it's okay, man. And social norms are something that we work today a lot on building. In organizational norms, social norms. And unless you create that, we are not going to create a larger perspective. Now if you see the metros, what they do is that the initial months across, there is some bit of a policing, someone stands there and, no, this one, yes. But soon it becomes a social norm. Once it becomes a social norm, hey, you policemen and policewomen, you can focus on a lot of other things. But creating a social norm it's a bit tough job to do. So, when we talk about preventing this digital crimes there's a whole focus on technology. Yes, but the more I look at it, I can tell you, I tell people road accidents, people say, it's all about engineering. I said, yeah, we built some of the best roads, and I know ILF has built extremely good roads across there. But when I took the Raebareli, whatever that sections and all that, the deaths are like the Delhi, this one, I think we have quite a few stretches we have taken. It's not the engineering. Despite the best of engineering, it's a behavior. And today, even digital part of it, to me, it's a far more behavioral problem. And because of the several characteristics I mentioned, technology cannot do anything about it. It has to be where we understand the behavior and we actually step in to do something about it. So, what do we begin? And how do you do that? First of all, I want to tell people that it's almost like what, digital world is like what was the roads and transport was somewhere in, the, 1800s. Even today, educations and other things, we are doing it. Creating the norms, what you should do, what you should not do, all this. And we still know, and we are a bit fairly far away from creating a proper social norms around it, which is really proper. So I just want to mention that I think the digital world is also, we are at the early stages of what traffic rules were. We are not going to overnight suddenly solve all the problems. Let's not even believe that we are going to do that. But as much as we are bringing in semblance of order and other things on Indian roads as it goes along, more and more, we need to make a beginning. But the pace of change of digital and the spread is fast, that obviously we'll have to do it at a much faster pace and far more intelligently than what it is. Because until now, for example, roads remained because we believed in the traditional understanding of human behavior, which says man is a rational and is a conscious man. But in the last 10, 12 years, these new sciences are saying that, and this new understanding that man is traditionally a non-conscious person there, lot of emotions that are involved there, and is an irrational person. And if we bring this new science into it, I can assure you, we can find solutions to some of the most complex problems, including this problem that we all want to solve, which is preventing digital crime. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we are open to the questions. Please.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir. They say the knowledge